Hello and welcome to Fear Less, Do More. Today we have the wonderfully fearless Peter Darrant, the wearer of many hats and CEO of Pride World Media, which also includes being producer and broadcaster of lots of entertainment to the LGBTQ+ community and their allies.
My mum sadly passed away and left me a small amount of money, and the radio station was about to close down, and I thought, I don't want this money. What would make my mum laugh? Buying a radio station. I worry about allies at the moment. I think they're tired. I don't think we as a community have been great to our allies. We've not had conversations with them that we should. So I think we've got to learn a lot from that. We're a divided nation. We talk about 37,000 people coming over on boats last year. We don't talk about the 4 million kids in poverty. We don't talk about the 360,000 people sleeping on our streets, because it's easier to target smaller groups of people.
Morning, Peter.
Good morning.
To see you.
Thank you very much. This is very weird because I'm sat in this chair. Normally I'm sat where you are interviewing. So,
Exactly.
So I'm just going to sit here and let you do all the work, which is gorgeous.
Yeah, but you know what makes a good podcast. You know what makes a good show. So I'm expecting
Watching
great
this
things.
One, that's what makes a good one.
Oh yes.
So on
of
brand.
Course. Thank you. So, Peter, I would describe you as one of the key queer figures in the Northeast.
I'll take it.
How has that happened?
Lord knows. Who knows? I've always been a protester. I've always been an advocate. My first ever Pride March was when I was 16, and that was back in 1987. You do the math. I know I look good, I'm just saying. And it was the big march against Section 28 in Manchester. 25,000 people turned out. And at the time, I was a 16-year-old dumb queer guy who really turned up for the chance to meet loads of men. You know, I didn't understand the politics, but then I got into it all, growing up through Section 28, going up through HIV/AIDS, growing up through the 70s where there was no positive queer representation in the media. And I remember turning up to this march and seeing the media there, and I got a bit panicked. Though my family knew I was gay and everything was cool, I picked up a banner straight away that said, "Save Shakespeare," because the whole idea of Section 28 is the banning of promotion of homosexuality. And it meant you couldn't read Oscar Wilde in schools. It meant that you couldn't do Shakespeare. It meant that local authorities couldn't promote HIV treatment or send out flyers. It was a hideous thing. Only got taken off the statute in 2004, 2 terms into a Blair government. So we've got to remember it's not just the Tories that were slow on things like this. So I picked it up and I marched. And ever since then, I got the bug, and I've always been brought up with things have got to be right. People, it's not about asking for more, and it's not asking for the moon. It's equality, and that's, growing up. Treat your neighbours right, be friendly, be community. Have each other's back, and I think that's just when I saw that our community was being victimised so much, I thought I need to step up.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us that went through that period of time can see what's happening now and have concerns that we're heading back. It was a time of brutality. It wasn't just that we didn't have the same rights. It was that we were attacked.
We had no rights.
We had no rights.
Yeah.
You could be sacked at work for being gay.
As I was.
And there's no. So you were actually sacked.
Yeah. This is when you sound really old. I was sat with a group of young people the other day, and they're 25, and you think, you're young, what am I? And I was saying to them, what would you do now if you faced homophobia in the street? And they said, we'd go to the police. And I said, well, I've got a scar here from that march when I was 16, where the police looked at us and went, oh, a group of puffs, and bludgeoned me. Now the police are my biggest allies. So, time changes. When I was 17 and went for my first job, I was told, being gay would be disruptive within the workforce, so I was sacked. And again, I said to these young people, what would you do? Well, we'd go to HR if we faced any homophobia. Well, HR sacked me.
Yeah.
And I can see it happening now. We've had the Met Police just announce that they're not actually now going to deal with non-violent hate crimes. So if people call you a name in the street, they won't actually investigate it. Now, this is going to have ripples. It's going to go throughout the whole of the UK, because what the Met does, everybody else follows. And it does take you back to the 70s and 80s, and pre that, where we didn't have rights, where we were looked at as second-rate citizens. And we can go into the whole politics of now, that we're being victimized again because it's easier to be a minority. You know, we're a divided nation.
Yeah.
We talk about 37,000 people coming over on boats last year. We don't talk about the 4 million kids in poverty. We don't talk about the 360,000 people sleeping on our streets. We don't talk about the 78,000 women in domestic violence centres, because it's easier to target smaller groups of people. So I can see it happening again. We live through it. My worry is, I don't know if the younger queer community is ready for the fight. And I exclude trans in that, because trans fight daily. They fight the government, they fight society, they fight their neighbours. But they're tired.
Yeah.
Our allies are tired. And I keep on looking around young queer people and think, come on, we need to book up our ideas. In May, there's going to be a terrible election here in the North East and throughout the UK for local elections. We've already seen it happening in Durham, what could go wrong, and in Northumberland. And we need to get ready. And it does worry me. And therefore, having old farts like me still going on about equality and rights, and we need to do this, hopefully it can inspire. Are we ready to lead again, Jill? Probably. We might have to man the barricades one more time, but hopefully it will inspire younger people to be the same. Because it wasn't a good time, the 70s and 80s. We had a government against us. And again, people haven't had a government, other than the trans community, haven't had a government, haven't had media against them the way that we're going to experience it as we did in the 70s and 80s, where you could be outed in a paper, which is, outrageous
and
now.
I can remember living in real fear of that, particularly at work. And both my kids are queer; they're out. So, I'm not outing them to the world here, but they don't understand. They think activism is posting things on social media, in arguing with people on social media. That's to them, that's activism. When I was about 20, I was chased down the street with my girlfriend, but blokes with baseball bats, and had to, that was in Manchester actually, had to scurry into a pub and hide. They haven't seen that. And I think the fear is probably stronger in our age group, because we know what it was like and we can see where it's going to go. And I do worry about my kids and how they will deal with that world, if that's the world that we're looking at.
The first time I was ever gay bashed was in Newcastle. I'm not from Newcastle, I'm from Bradford, and I've lived around the world. And I came to Newcastle in a show in 42nd Street at the Theatre Royal back in 1990. And I went into Eldon Square at the time, and there used to be a shop called Lillian Skinner. I don't know if it's still there. Yeah. It's a shoe shop of mixed quality. But and I remember looking in the window at some shoes. And the next thing I remember was a fist in my face smashing me against the window. And it was a complete shock. And luckily the security guards were on the ball. They were there, they came over and they pulled this guy away and they said to him, what'd you do that for? I said, he's a puff, he's wearing a pink t-shirt. And I don't know what I was more shocked at, the homophobia or the confused coral salmon with pink. It was like hideous. But there was that in the street attack for no provocation other than wearing something that you felt comfortable. At the time in the late 80s, 90s, where pink was for girls. But now we see it with trans people, with non-binary, those people who want to express themselves in a way that they feel comfortable. They're being attacked for what they wear. And then from that, it turns into violence. And from there, it goes on to persecution. And it's a slow, steady thing. Social media, thank God it wasn't around when we were there. Thank God mobile phones weren't around when we were there. I fear for your kids and anybody younger who has to deal with it, because we get attacked all the time online, but I'm so old, I don't even know how to reply to it half of the time. Or maybe I'm so jaded that I copy and paste it and I think, that's going into a funding application because I can use it for a positive. But I think social media could have a positive in this new battle back. But when you're battling bots and you're battling people that don't exist and idiots, I'll go off on a tangent, but when I did Pride this year, we took over the Metro Centre for the day, and we did a day of Pride, and Gateshead Council were fantastic. They posted all about it, and a person said, "This is shocking and disgusting, and it's woke, and you're forcing rainbows down my kids' throats, and I won't be coming." And God bless the person in charge of their social media at Gateshead Council, because they clicked on their profile and they responded, "Thanks for this. As you live in Milton Keynes, which is 300 miles away, our rainbows don't extend that far. But what a lovely day you'll miss. Have a good day." And you think, yeah, there's idiots out there.
Yeah.
So I would say to your kids and those younger, you know, don't take heart with everything that they get attacked with on social media. Actually look at where they're from. Look that they've only got 5 friends. They don't exist. They're a Russian bot or whatever they are, and just move on. But it must be challenging, because everything is social media now.
Yeah.
And it's hit and run hate.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can hide behind a keyboard and say, people feel like they can say whatever they want. And if you met them in the real life, they would never say it to your face.
And you can't argue with them.
Yeah, no, you can't. And and I think you've got to get the balance, haven't you? Because there are some people's minds you will never change, and you're best just not interacting with them. And there's always that balance between how you call people out and call people in and get people on side. But I mean, you've just given a great example there of allyship from Gateshead, who have, instead of going, "Oh God, we'll not do that next year, we better not do that because we're going to get loads of criticism." And they've been really supportive with the Safer to Be conference that was held this year, where they lit up the Millennium Bridge.
They did, bless us.
Colours.
Newcastle Council, again, great. When Northern Pride did theirs, they jumped in, so did South Tyneside, so did Sunderland. And what we found with that is, if somebody actually steps up and challenges somebody online, there are 1,000 allies ready to jump in. There's a fear that I don't want to be first.
Yeah.
And when that person did that thing with in Gateshead and stepped back, the feed filled with people going, "Yes, don't be a miserable mayor, you know, don't be stupid, you know. Milton Keynes has a great pride, go along to it." And people just jumped in. And actually that then sends this kind of joy through me that we're not alone. There are a lot of silent allies out there, and they're getting a little bit fed up with it all as well. So maybe there's more hope than what I'm saying, but I worry about allies at the moment. I think they're tired. I don't think we as a community have been great to our allies. We've demanded, we've challenged, we've made them change things. We've not had conversations with them that we should. So I think we've got to learn a lot from that. But having your local authority not only stand up for you, which is their job for all communities. They're not just doing it for queer communities, they're doing it for every community. They're on a hiding to nothing because they're emailing about bins one day and then, you know, human rights the next. They'll never get it right. They'll never please everyone. But to have somebody like them on side, we helped set up Sunderland's first LGBTQ footballer supporters club, Pride of Wearside, to have like a football premiership club behind you. Those are the kind of big things that kind of gives you like the confidence to go forward.
And I mean, a lot of what you do now is around media, events, all of those sorts of things. You mentioned just previously there that the first time you came to Newcastle, you were in a show.
I was a huffer.
Yes,
a dancer.
Do I dare ask?
Google it. Google it. It was called a triple threat back there because I used to sing, dance, and act. This face has launched 1,000 knitting patterns in my youth. Do you remember Patches magazine?
Oh yes.
I was Hunk of the Month.
Oh.
And that involved me having a photo, you know, and being a poster, but doing what they used to call, this is where the young people go, what? A photo story. Oh, yes, and it used to be like a 3-page where you used to be with a girl and you go...
What were you called?
Oh, I've no idea.
Derek.
I don't even know what the story was. I knew that we ran up a hill and then I didn't come down the hill. Maybe that's a metaphor in life. Maybe there was a handsome gardener on the other side and I said, "Jane, off you go, love." But I don't even know the story. But you used to do all these kind of, and then they put a speech bubble and that was your story. So I used to do a lot of that and then performed around the world in, dare I say, tits, teeth and feather shows on the top of mountains with leopards and lions and cruise ships. So performance was kind of always what I did as a kid. And then foolishly, I I got into like the performance side because I used to model and I used to have a reasonably good career. And there was a show in Malaysia on the top of a mountain called Genting in Kuala Lumpur. And they said, we're going to do, it's a 25 cast dance troupe, Moulin Rouge acts, etc. Of course, there's a topless Cinderella 25-minute ballet in it with fountains and lions and tigers. And we want Prince Charming. So we're going to pay you just to fly to Malaysia for a year, to do 2 shows a day, to come on and be Prince Charming. And while you're over there, you can get some modelling work. So I said, all right then. And when I landed, Roger Hanna, who's a world famous choreographer, used to be in the young generation, before Pan's People and all those kind of things. He said, oh, you're tall. He said, I actually need another boy dancer. I'm going to teach you to dance in 2 weeks. And taught me how to be a show boy, which is basically do the splits off of tables, do a cartwheel and lift a girl and look handsome, which I could do, bizarrely. And then, yeah, so I fell into that and then became this singer, dancer, actor and toured the world.
So why did that come to an end? Were you just absolutely knackered?
My knees, jumping off of unsprung floors. How it came to an end, very bizarre. I opened the Customs House in South Shields in its first ever show, its first panto. I was Prince Florizel of Ruritania in Snow White, as you do.
I'm not sure I'm familiar with that character, actually, with Snow White.
It's very deep. There's a lot of backstory in it. And I went out one night to the old Rock Shots and I met a young lad and we fell in love. And I went back down to London and he came down and he said, why don't you come up and stay for a couple of weeks? He lived in Peterlee at the time. And I said, well, I've got a cruise ship lined up in 4 weeks. So I'll come up and stay with you for 2 weeks. And you know, then I'll go on the cruise ship. And that was 28 years ago. He went, the Northeast stayed. And then I stayed here and I used to work in Harrods and Harvey Nicks in between jobs doing promotions. And so there's an agency here called Tyne Tees Models run by Leslie. And I helped her set it up at the start and I worked with her for 6 years. And then I just kind of stumbled into stuff. I've never had any training in anything. I became the comms director for No Ordinary Hotels, which owns Lumley Castle and Coombe Abbey. Never had any training in it, but I took their turnover from 10 million to 15 million. We opened offices in New York. I went there to set up businesses because I had common sense. And common sense isn't so common. And the amount of people that I would interview with the degrees from here to there, but they didn't understand about people. They didn't understand just about life. So I seemed to do really well and fall into business. Then I went back to the Customs House and became Ops Director for them for 7 years. And then bizarrely ended up running a TV show for 4 years on 5 nights a week, a magazine show in the Northeast. So it's all kind of bizarre. None of it's planned. It just kind of happens.
Happy accidents.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's, I mean, that's a really important point, isn't it? Your qualifications, all of that are all really important. And I think we're only now just really getting to grips as society that actually there's so much more that you need to be successful than just a piece of paper that says you're really, really good at maths or really, really good at English. And how do you bridge that gap? Because what we find is when we take people in who come, say, straight from university, they can struggle because they think that they've learned everything and they know everything to do with law, and then they come in and they're like, oh my God, it's completely different in practice. How do you bridge that gap? How do we get people ready for the real world of work?
There's a question. You've got to have it in you, and here's a classic story or example. At the Customs House, I was looking for a PR manager. And I thought, we'll put it out there. And we got loads of, people with degrees who turned up and it was lovely. And so I thought I'd have a big workshop day where I'd get to know people, they get to know us, we could do some press release writing and whatnot, give them a feel. And the Customs House, we were in a room and it's obviously on the Tyne. And opposite us is the DFD. I always get it wrong. Which is the sofa company and which is the thing? I think
DFS is the sort of sofa company.
Right, it's the other one, DFDS. We had a sofa company opposite us. No, we had the ferry company opposite us. And it was a windy day. And we had windows looking out. And the ferry broke its moorings and was sailing into the middle of the Tyne. And I was watching this happening. I said, "Oh, have you seen what's going on over there?" And there was all these PR people sat there going, "Yeah." So is nobody going to get the phone out and video it? Is nobody going to say to me, "Shall we call Tyne Tees or the BBC?" Because this is a Customs House story that we can actually lead on because we've seen it, we've witnessed it. Nobody had that spark to say, "Let's do it." And so they got kicked out. Then I employed somebody who came along, and I didn't look at their CV. And I asked them to do a presentation for me, and I didn't have time to look at the presentation. You know, it's one of those horrible things. But just talking to them, you know, when you have that connection and you just actually, they're worldly, they're young and they're worldly, and they got the job. And about 2 years later, I was rummaging through my drawers and they were opposite me, and I found their memory stick. I said, "Oh, I've got your presentation here. Let's watch it." And I put it on, and they'd loaded up the wrong PowerPoint. And on it, and I'll use cleaner language for this, it was, "If you're opening this PowerPoint, you're a beep. Click here." So I clicked here and it went, "Haha, you're still a beep. Click here. Ha ha ha." And it went on like this and I was laughing. They'd obviously had it from a friend and thought it was funny. And I sat opposite a guy called Phil and I said, "Phil, I'm just looking at your presentation." I said, "You do know you wouldn't have got the job if I had have opened that." And I would have actually lost somebody who I valued with my life, somebody who deputised for me. So for me, and I can only speak personally, it's how we have a conversation. It's, you know, don't give me the 5 questions and what you want to do for the company and when you want to do this. Tell me about you. Tell me about your life. What floats your boat? What did you watch last night on the TV? You know, lots of people now go through people's social media. I don't want to do that because it'd be horrific. If people did that for me back in the day, my Lord. So how do we prepare people? We say to those who aren't academic, don't worry if you're not academic, shine. Shine a bit more, have a little bit more confidence in yourself because it's a selling game. Whatever business you're going into, you're selling yourself, you're selling a product, you're selling an idea, you're selling a partnership, and just work on that.
Fear Less, Do More is brought to you by the team at Square One Law. If you're enjoying this episode, hit follow or subscribe. It really helps us out and it means that you won't miss out on any future episodes. We have some great fearless guests that leave you feeling really inspired. And if you think someone else would enjoy it too, feel free to pass it on, whether that's a mate, a colleague or someone in your network. Thanks for listening. Now back to the conversation.
We've talked about, you know, the organisation of prides. There's you run out northeast, and you're also involved with Pride Media Centre.
Yes.
Which of those came first?
Well, Prides came first. Back in 2011, I became chair of Northern Pride, and I was chair for 2 years, and we took it from 8,000 people to 28,000, and I was brought in to professionalise it, to actually bring in sponsorship, marketing, to actually engage with allies. At the time, I think it had a budget of like 30,000 a year, and it never hit budget. And the first year that I was in, we brought in 80,000, and it wasn't about the money at the time, but it was about engaging with the corporates. Now, there's a real backlash against that now, that we shouldn't have all these corporates involved in Pride, that it should be community. But as I always remind people, back in the 80s and 90s, no corporates wanted to get involved with us. So to have a brand associated with your pride markets your pride and gives kudos to your pride more than you could ever spend money on. And being partners, being in the Metro Centre, for example, for a day, and the Metro Centre are astonishing, and they pull out all the stops, and anybody who's homophobic, get out. You're not welcome here. This is a safe space for everyone. It is astonishing. But they get 1.6 million through their doors in a month, and they're advertising our rights. Fantastic, wonderful. So I came in to do Pride for 2 years, and then I raised funds for them for 5 years. Went away to do TV. So I did this show called The Lowdown, which was 900 shows, 5 nights a week, a magazine show about the Northeast, which was very strange because I suddenly had to say to myself, though I was out publicly, I'm actually going to, do I become a gay man on TV?
Yeah.
Or do I actually dumb it down? And I thought, oh, sod it, Peter. So even I had those conversations with myself. And in that time, we produced a show called Made with Pride, which was the UK's only live TV show, queer TV show. It ran for 90 minutes on a Thursday. It ran for 78 episodes. We had 2 million viewers around the world. It was the first time that a show went online as well. We produced a dance show called Made on the Dance Floor. It was the first time a same-sex couple entered and won before Strictly. So we were doing all these kind of things. And then I started to do Pride Radio, just as a Saturday presenter, because I wanted to give back. My mum sadly passed away and left me a small amount of money, not enough to buy a second-hand car. And the radio station was about to close down. And I thought, I don't want this money. What would make my mum laugh? Buying a radio station. She's having the last laugh now. So I bought the radio station. Through that, we started to left TV to concentrate on the radio. And then I had an approach from Gateshead Council again, because I was based in Newcastle. And they said, Peter, come and fly the flag for equality over the river. We love what you've done with Prides. We've seen you on the TV. We know Pride Radio. We want it in Gateshead. We've got this amazing building for you. So I turned up September 2018. You couldn't get into the car park for abandoned, burnt out cars. There was a glass building attached to us that had collapsed.
Oh, God.
You walked through the doors. There was no heating, lighting or carpets. The walls were yellow, the skirting boards blue and the doors were red and there were dead animals everywhere.
Perfect.
And I said to Sheena, the chief exec then, what have you brought me to? But I didn't say it in those words, in those family-friendly words. She said, come into the TV studios. And they were piled high with rubbish, but it's quality soundproofing. It's 1980s soundproofing. This building, built in the 80s, was the place that every Catherine Cookson interior was shot at, every car caravan and kitchen advert was shot at. Robson and Jerome's Unchained Melody, shot in this space. It then became home to the God Channel, to the Horror Channel, to the Adult Channel, and to CBeebies. And then the gays arrived. Oh, there's a Netflix series. Ryan Murphy, I'll sell it. So we took over, and I remember walking round, and it's 17,500 square feet, and I saw these empty offices, and I just thought, we could create a queer space here, because I was conscious we didn't have one in the region. But rather than it just being about hearts and minds, we can do something for business. That's my background. I set up businesses, I run businesses. I want to help young entrepreneurs of tomorrow, or help allies understand about best practice. So I went back to the other two directors and I said, come and have a look at this space. And they came out the next day and they said, oh, we don't know. I said, too late, majority shareholder, I've signed. And we moved in the October with 2 chairs, a fridge and a desk. And then we created the Pride Media Centre, the UK's first LGBTQ business and media hub. Lord Michael Cashman's my patron. He set up Stonewall. The irony is Michael led the march in Manchester when I was 16. Oh. So I was at the back, he was at the front, and then we stood outside my building shaking hands. So I love that, you know, it's kind of a real tingle moment, meet your heroes. And so, so we set up the Pride Media Centre. Through Pride Radio, we support 40 Prides with free live broadcasts. And we supported Sunderland Pride for a long time. And then Sunderland Pride decided it was closing. And I thought, it still needs a Pride and there's a charity there. And so I stepped in and spoke to partners in Sunderland and said, it's not going to happen. I've got this idea for Out North East. I'll come along and do a Pride. Will you work with me? But bearing in mind, it's your Pride, not mine. And they said yes. And then when Martin Gannon, the leader of Gateshead Council, heard that I was doing it in Sunderland, he said, oh, yeah, I want one. And then Tracy Dixon, the leader of South Tyneside Council, who's a force to be reckoned with. You don't want to argue with Tracy, bless her. She said, if they're having one, I'm having one. So what started off as 5 events in Sunderland turned out for what was going to be 15 events over 3 months, all free. And when we finished in September last year, we delivered 65 free events. Wow. Such was the demand from the public. And it wasn't all about a party and a parade and a concert. It was about workshops, coffee mornings, family activities, film screenings, bowling, colour fun runs through Chopwell Woods, the full works. So that's how Out North East started, and we've just delivered 55 events this year, but now we've got a range of activities. I've just worked with Durham Miners Association to talk about 40 years of the miners' strike. We've delivered Safer to Be Me, which no doubt will come on. We've delivered a food programme. We've delivered a whole series of things. And we've now just as well delivered an LGBT phobia survey on behalf of the Police Crime Commissioner, which has startling figures in it. So we've kind of moving away from events and into a charity in itself. And because of this, in a month's time, in December, we opened the region's first community centre, the One Centre, which I always knew we needed. And when we first set up Out North East, we did a survey of people in the community and said, what do you want from a community centre? And they gave us some amazing stats. And I thought, in 5 years' time, we can do this. And then luckily a chunk of UK Share Prosperity money came my way. Conscious in May, we might have a different leadership in the region and it might never happen. We took, the bull by the horns and said, okay, we're going to open this. So it's 10,000 square feet, community kitchen, studios, community centre, function room for 120, community kitchen. And I've got builders in there right now. So it's...
So whereabouts is that? So we can...
Well, it's actually on the same development as the Pride Media Centre. Right. Pride Media Centre, sadly, on the 31st of December, closes its doors. And it closes its doors after 7 years because it needs a 3 million quid refurb, a wiring job. And it's a local authority building and they have to pay for it. And at the moment, they've got to go away and they've got to pay for it, which is going to take a couple of years. We can't trade in it because the wiring is out of date. So again, with me, it's all about fate. I'm a great believer of sliding doors. Go through the left door, the right door, what happens? It just seems to have happened. It just seems to have happened that the gods aligned and that's going to close. So from the ashes, a new phoenix arrives. And Out North East, it will be a dedicated community space which will serve the region, but it will be, central to Gateshead. And the reason why we picked Gateshead was in our survey that we did of people, they didn't want it in Newcastle. 40% said Gateshead. The majority said away from the scene. They wanted it to be a sober site. They wanted easy, and then the gays kicked in, easy access, good parking, blah, blah, blah. And P-Law, where it'll be based. They wanted it away from a town centre. They didn't want a nighttime economy going by. They didn't want, the threat of broken windows. So we picked Stonehills in P-Law because it's an 8-minute walk from the metro. I've got 100 free car parking spaces. Sunderland and South Tyneside, we're an interchange for it. We will be when Washington opens the railway. Heberton's, Heworth, is one step away, and that brings trains from Hartlepool through to Carlisle. So we are actually a central hub. And that opens. So it's all a bit bonkers. It's kind of all just happened. And I am a great believer in luck and fate. And I know I've put a lot of hard work in, and the team has. But sometimes I think, that some things are aligning.
Some serendipity in there somewhere.
You would hope.
But most people faced with a building, as you described it, with dead animals and blue skating boards, would have gone, no, he's somewhere else.
Yeah.
What is it in you that makes you go, this is all right, we'll be able to do this?
Too much watching changing rooms as a kid. I know what can be done in 3 days, and that's what I want. 3 days I want it done. Because somebody's got to do it. And if we waited for somebody else to do it, you wake up one day and you're full of regrets. Age has no ownership over death, which is a cheery thing. I don't know when I'm going to go. I had in the 80s, I lost a lot of friends through AIDS who would have been fantastic and would have sparkled and been beautiful now. And I think I've always had the, right, if the Grim Reaper knocks on my door tomorrow, what have you achieved, Peter? And I think I could open the door and say, all right, I've still got a bit more, but actually when I look back, it's bonkers. It's bonkers what we've managed to do. It's about that it needs to happen. And we can't wait for others. So when I looked at that building and I could just see the potential. I always wonder how many buildings have I walked through the door and missed the potential. I'm always should I have gone through that door in life? But it seems to have all worked out. It's just something in me. And, you know, without playing the violins, grew up in a poor council estate in Bradford where we had no money, but always felt that I was an alien as a kid. And I know now it's to do with my sexuality, but I always thought, I'm different. I should win the lottery because I've got bigger plans. My life was going to be, you were going to be a lorry driver like your dad. And I knew if my dad had stayed around, but he decided to run away with the milkwoman on Christmas Eve, which is an irony.
Was she actually the milkwoman?
She was the milkwoman. And she lived across the road. But there's another story. There's a story for the memoirs. Had he stayed around, I would have been a lorry driver. I would have married. I would have had 3 kids. I would have been hanging around toilets because I knew I was gay. And I knew I was gay at a very, very young age. Because that didn't happen, I then suddenly had a life that I couldn't have dreamed of, and went to places and had adventure and independence and a supportive mother and sister and grandmother who helped me go be whoever, who said to me when I was 13, you're gay. And I went, well, I don't know. I think I like girls. No, you're gay, but it's fine. And at a time when people didn't have those conversations, I think I was given a lot of freedom, and I paid that back, I hope. It's just, that's just me. It's got to be done.
I mean, you know, one of the words, this whole podcast is about fearlessness, and that's why I wanted to talk to you, because in my eyes, everything you've done has been fearless, but there must be something that you are scared of. What does keep you awake at night?
It used to be spiders and snakes, I'm not going to lie. And then when you lived in Malaysia for a year, think the spiders here are small, you know. Failing kind of worries me.
Fear of failing.
The fear of failing, yeah. And that's just a self-criticism. Joe Public will never know I've failed. I know I've failed. And it could be that something is a huge success. The Summer of Pride that we've just done is a huge success. But I think we failed on a few things. I feel that we failed engaging with certain communities. So I beat myself up. I'm my own worst enemy.
But can you not see that as a positive? That
Oh,
you
I do,
actually,
yeah.
that you are able to self-reflect?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people can't and just think, oh, God, I did a brilliant job there. And then nothing ever improves, nothing moves on, nothing, you know, there's no... Whereas if you've got that self-awareness and you've got that ability to reflect in a critical way, I mean, not in a harmful way where you're awake all night, but
some things do, like, you know, yeah. And then I can change it for next time, and I'll try for next time. The fear is regret that I didn't do something, that I didn't embrace the moment. And trust me, it sounds, oh yeah, built the Pride Media Centre. I had to get $100,000 loan against my house. I had a stroke. I lost my husband because of it, through a divorce, because of the challenges. When COVID happened, I couldn't pay myself for 6 months to keep the building going. So it's not glam.
And how much of your success do you think is to do with the fact that you were Hunk of the Month in Patch?
All of it. That was the pose. I've still got the Polaroid, actually. You should put it up side by side. But yeah, it was all down to that. And I own Patches, everything that I have in life.
You've got to find that somewhere. Have you still got it?
I know. No, I've got, like I say, I've got the Polaroid.
I've got to find a back issue of that.
I've got the Polaroid. It was an iced denim jacket with a white T-shirt with a lot of gel. I mean, we were talking VO5 back in those days, you know, vroom, studio line. And I do look at him sometimes, that young, dumb, queer kid who was just having lots of fun and whatnot. And I think, God, look at you now. What would you say? You know, what would you think now? The idea of you know, I don't class myself as an ambassador, but putting myself out there at the time when you know, I was happy just to be who, you know, have fun. It's very strange. It's very strange. You know, when Drew stood up, Drew Dalton at the Safer to Be Me, the Newcastle Gateshead Declaration, which you were fantastically the sponsor of, and said if I could say to my 18-year-old self, I'd be stood here with the Belgium ambassador, with the leaders of 2 local authorities, with a room full of people from 30 plus countries, creating a document that actually is a global first. You give yourself a shake. And I think it's because people it's not just me, it's not just unique to me. When you see people like Drew and others that have come from kind of a nothing background, There must be something in the water. There must have been something in the, well, he's more 80s, I'm more 70s, that happened.
I think our generation, there was a huge amount of change, and there was a huge amount of political change. There were sort of major developments in that time. It was a time of real activism and also, and I think we're really special.
Yeah, and I've got to, this is where, the viewers will switch off. I've got to acknowledge Thatcher in that, because, Thatcher wasn't our greatest ally. What she said to me in 79 when she won, bearing in mind my family cried that Labour lost. She said, we need to change. I can't take all of you with me, but I'll take some, and it's up to you. And that's kind of, I remember kind of thinking that, and I thinking I can actually improve myself. Now, I stand against everything that Thatcher did, but it was the first time that a lad from a council estate whose life was predestined, when somebody actually said in authority, and we went through that bizarre time, we went through HIV/AIDS, which was a terrible time.
Horrendous.
And yet, it was an incredible time because it was the first time that I felt community. The lesbian, the trans, everybody came together. We all supported each other. This is part of the problem now. We used to have one pub back in the day. And I'm going to stereotype, but the lesbians tend to hang around the pool table. The gays were on the dance floor. The trans were kind of sat down in a corner. But we were in one space. I could tell you everybody's name.
Yeah.
And when we left, we had each other's backs to get to the taxis, to get to the chip shops. People were there. We battled each other, because you always went to the loo when somebody was taking a shot, and you always knocked the queue, and they weren't happy, and it was all go, and everybody was sick of Bronski beat on the dance floor. But we had that one space. Now we're divided as a community, literally by geography. That we all have our own bars and our own spaces, and hopefully the one centre we can bring people back, because there's a lot of division out there, and we have a politics that seeks to divide us. We've got the LGB Alliance now trying to turn us against the trans. We've got to come back as one. So there's got a lot of healing to do. And then we've got to focus on our allies and say, we're sorry we've confused you. We're sorry we've demanded. You're our friends. Let's help you.
And, I think looking forwards, that centre can be, I think a physical space can be somewhere where people can come together, and change can happen from that. So really looking forward to seeing
I'm putting a big target on the back as well, because again, that is the part of the One Centre. I'm circling the wagons. In May, a lot of organisations, LGBTQ organisations, are going to lose funding, and they're going to need a safe space. So we're doing that. And also, I'm saying, deflect. Come for us. We're old enough. We understand how it works. Don't go for that small company. Don't go for that small charity. They're doing great work. They're under the radar. So we are kind of saying, we're here, we're queer, get used to us, which was the old chant when I was 16 going through Manchester. But we will be saying that. And we'll be saying that in a political, literally, circle, which could change colour. And they're not going to be our allies. So
you never know. So just to wrap everything up, if you could go back to one moment in time and relive it again, what would that be?
I'm running up that hill in patches, obviously, that's the thing. If I could go back in time, I would go back to that march, that first ever march when I was 16, and say, stop looking at the guys, read the slogans. So, stop flirting with all the, well, no, don't go out with him because he was rubbish. But actually, when you get there, and, I heard Ian McKellen's speech, I heard Michael Cashman's speech, listen to all the speeches. Don't think, we'll go to the pub now and see who we can pull. I would just say to that 16-year-old as well, it's going to be a fun ride. Get ready, kid.
The ride's not over. So, really looking forward to seeing where life takes you next, and all of the organisations that you're involved in. I'm sure I will be keeping close to them.
You'll be dragged along. You've got no choice on it now.
I'm expecting that. That's fine.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Fear Less, Do More, brought to you by Square One Law. If you found today's conversation inspiring or interesting, we've added a recommendation for what to listen to next. That's either on the screen now or in the show notes. Take care and we'll see you next time.